California. An ex-convict has stolen a truck and now leads officers on a high-speed pursuit through the city's busiest streets and freeways. Sergeant Bart Arachiga is one of the officers involved in the 100-mile-per-hour chase.
We received information from the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department that he was supposed to be armed, that he was an ex-felon, that he was not going to go back to prison.
He's blowing every red light and nearly caused he sees in every one of them.
He apparently told his mother that the party is armed and will shoot the police.
The desperate driver threatens everything in his path as he tries to escape police.
Found through San Pedro, almost hit 2 pedestrians. Copy, eastbound Imperial approaching Main Street, basically blowing every intersection, every red light.
The officers in pursuit must remain calm and focused.
Emotionally, during the incident itself, you really don't realize what you're going through, I don't think. You're just kind of reacting to the situation.
As the chase continues, the driver approaches his own home.
Now, see, this is where this pursuit started, so he may be close to home.
The suspect's sister has been watching the pursuit on television. As her brother passes, she races to the truck and tries to convince him to surrender.
Somebody's trying to jump on the vehicle. Some female came out and tried to jump on top of the vehicle, and she fell off the vehicle and now into the middle of the street.
But the driver accelerates and speeds back to the freeway.
Got brake lights on and a whole lot of sparks come out.
As the streets begin to fill with rush hour traffic, the ongoing chase takes its toll on the stolen truck.
There was rubber pieces, tire pieces that were coming off.
He just lost the right front tire. He is on the rim.
Despite the damage, the suspect and officers continue to reach speeds of nearly 90 miles per hour.
57-200, we're exiting the Boulevard Boulevard North.
And the sparks began to fly from underneath his vehicle.
Now, you might be able to squeeze through on the shoulder, but I doubt it.
Later on, after the tire came completely off, there were pieces of the wheel.
With no escape, the suspect crashes his battered truck into another automobile.
He's just seen with a blue van. He stopped on the off-ramp. Driver's getting out. And he's jumping in another car.
Inside sits Tim Cole.
Before I knew it, he was in my van on top of me, stepping on the gas, and I was putting my foot on the brake. He's saying, "Get out, get out."
The terrified driver tries to escape.
It looks like the driver might jump out into the center median.
But Cole becomes tangled in his seatbelt and can't break free. For several tense seconds, Cole hangs from his open door.
I figured if I get thrown into that oncoming traffic, I'm dead.
The driver just failed. We're still northbound.
Luckily, Cole is thrown to the pavement with only minor injuries.
It just happened like a split second. It's over.
In his second stolen car, the suspect launches another chase.
Yeah, he's now on the 91 freeway. It's going to back up real bad. He's got no real place to go.
Despite heavy traffic, the driver becomes increasingly reckless. As the chase enters its second hour, the suspect refuses to surrender.
You have one car that tried to block him. They hit the shoulder and get on 91.
Finally, a desperate decision ends the chase.
When the suspect crashed into the center divider and came to a stop, he immediately jumped out of the vehicle.
Believing the suspect might be armed, officers prepare for a possible shootout.
I jumped across the center divider and followed him over. He jumped on the perimeter fence, and I drew down on him and ordered him off the fence.
Fortunately for officers, the former felon surrenders without a fight. The 65-mile chase has caused 24 traffic collisions among innocent civilians. Police officers arrest the suspect while the disabled van is moved to the side of the road. His reckless disregard for the law and safety of others will be punished. Only now do officers allow themselves to reflect on the ordeal.
After the situation had been resolved, you realize just exactly how dangerous the situation was and what the outcome could have been.
As for the suspect, he's sentenced to 16 years in prison, a fitting end for placing officers and civilians in the path of danger. But disregard for human life is a common trait among determined criminals. Orlando, Florida. As his dashboard camera rolls, Officer Ray Schulte makes what he thinks will be a routine traffic stop.
Driver, step back to me with your license, please.
I observed a white Dodge Intrepid traveling northbound from the South County line. It was traveling too close to a camper trailer that was in front of it.
You got up to within 2 car lengths of it at 65 miles an hour. Okay? Just too close. Okay? Do me a favor, keep your hands out of your pockets for me.
He stated to me that he was traveling up to Tallahassee. He was going to visit some people up there for spring break, which at the time seemed rather odd to me because spring break had occurred about a month earlier.
Is this your car or? It's your rental car? Okay. Who's in the car with you? Brother. That's my brother. Your brother? He going up there with you, huh?
At that point, I went up to the passenger in the car, asked for the rental papers, which he gave to me.
But a check of the papers shows that the vehicle was rented to a woman named Maria, not 2 men.
Who's Maria?
Maria?
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Huh?
That's mom.
Your mama?
Yeah.
Or yours?
His mom.
His mom?
Yeah.
Related? Your cousins? I thought you were brothers.
We are brothers.
Well, which is it? Your brothers or your cousins?
That again raised my suspicions. At that time, I called for a backup unit to come up and assist me.
The backup unit arrives with a drug-sniffing dog.
Let me explain something to you, okay? Narcotics detection dog. He stays alert to the odor of illegal narcotics, okay? Things like cocaine, marijuana, and heroin. He's alerted on the spot to the odor of illegal narcotics. That doesn't necessarily mean there's something there, but that does give us the right to search it, and we are going to search that, okay? What I'm going to do right now, I'm going to pat you both down, make sure you don't have any weapons or contraband on you.
I patted the driver down at that time, as well as the passenger, and began to escort them back to a patrol car to have them sit in the back while we conducted the search of the vehicle.
But one of the suspects runs for freedom.
He's in front! He's in front! I shot him!
I stepped partially into the vehicle, took a hold of him, and began to try and pull him out. He looked up at me, looked back down, and reached under the driver's seat with his hand. And at that point, I was in fear for my life. I just knew that he was going for a gun.
Getting Highway 12, signal for any of these vehicles. Just took off northbound. Shots have been fired.
Although shot in the jaw, the suspect escapes and leads police on a high-speed chase.
He got up to speeds well over 130 miles an hour during the course of the pursuit.
As they pursue him, officers witness the suspect throwing items out his car window. Officers quickly retrieve packets of cocaine as the driver continues his escape attempt.
He was passing people both on the right shoulder all the way over into the grass. He was driving towards other law enforcement officers, other troopers, other deputies, and I just wanted it to end as quickly as possible before somebody got hurt or killed.
But it doesn't end quickly. The suspect evades police for over an hour and a half, leading 30 officers through 5 different counties before making a critical error.
Oh, my goodness. See the accident right there.
This error sends the suspect's car into a dangerous slide.
That's it.
The car travels more than 1,000 feet before it finally stops. The suspect is taken into custody and later convicted of narcotics possession and resisting arrest.
You never know who it is that you're going to stop, whether it's somebody that's on their way home from church, or whether it's somebody that's on their way home from the Circle K where they've just robbed and killed someone. You never know.
When officers are caught in the line of fire, there's no telling who or what might save their lives. 3 a.m., Walton County, Georgia. Deputy Henry Huff approaches a car that he stopped for speeding. Inside sits the suspect, a 15-year-old boy.
Radar stop, she's doing 88 miles an hour.
Suddenly, the suspect shoots Deputy Huff twice at point-blank range, but Huff remains on his feet, unharmed, and returns fire. How is it possible to survive 2 bullets fired at a range of 12 inches? Officer Huff owes his life to a remarkable piece of safety gear, the bullet-resistant vest.
This is the vest I had on the night of the incident. As you can see the 2 rounds where I was shot. This is a trauma plate that was inside the vest. As you see, the bottom one hit the trauma plate here, it bounced off. The other bullet that stuck in the top was lodged in there, was actually dug out.
Bullet-resistant vests are made from a fiber called Kevlar. When woven together, Kevlar creates a material that's 5 times stronger than steel. Layers of this material are then placed inside the vests that are worn by law enforcement officers. Bullet-resistant vests have saved the lives of more than 2,000 men and women in blue.
I venture to say 98.5% of the instances where there have been officer-involved shootings, having the body armor out made the difference between life and death, most definitely. When a bullet hits a vest, the first few layers of the Kevlar start deforming the bullet, slowing it down, so to speak. When it reaches towards the back of the fabric, it prevents the bullet from penetrating the vest and thus going through someone's body.
In Jackson, Mississippi, narcotics officer Danny Norton is about to add his name to the list of those saved by the bullet-resistant vest. Norton and his fellow officers surround the home of a suspected drug dealer. Then shots are heard from the backyard.
You heard, baby? You heard? That son of a bitch shot at him. I think I got him.
With guns drawn, Norton and a second officer enter the house. Gunfire erupts in the house. Surrounding officers must simply hold their ground and hope that everyone comes out alive. Finally, Officer Norton is pulled from the building.
Call an ambulance. Somebody call an ambulance. Get the radio, call an ambulance.
To everyone's relief, Officer Norton is not injured.
Stay put.
But a hand to his chest indicates that his vest took a bullet during the shootout. Despite the danger, the narcotics officers re-enter the home. Again, the other officers watch and wait.
Hey, wait, please, now come on. Slide this gun out on the floor. Hands on the back of his head.
Minutes later, Officer Norton emerges, his Kevlar vest in his hand. The suspect has been shot and is removed, and the crisis is over. No lives have been lost. But a closer inspection of his vest reveals how differently this face-off could have ended. The bullet that struck Officer Norton hit the metal plate located over his heart. Had he not been wearing his vest, Norton might well have been killed.
Thank God for bulletproof vest.
Instead, Norton suffers only a small bruise on his chest. He now joins Henry Huff and the thousands of other police officers who are alive today thanks to an incredible piece of technology.
Without a vest, I would have been dead.
Body armor is your best insurance policy in the world. I don't think you could put a price on that.
Police officers' lives depend on more than just equipment. Quick thinking and cool logic are critical, even when the suspect is someone officers know. Butte, Montana. Terry Rossland, a man with a history of mental illness, sits inside a car he's rigged with deadly explosives. His car is parked in a downtown intersection. Rossland threatens to blow up his car. Sergeant Dan Hollis, Lieutenant Bob Lee, and Sheriff Bob Butorovich are the first officers to arrive on the scene. They're also lifelong friends with the suspect. Their first instinct is to reason with Terry.
I knew Terry from the time he was 15 years old.
We were always able to talk to him, resolve the situation, resolve the problem.
I felt very strongly that face-to-face contact would probably be better than standing back 50 feet talking through a bullhorn.
While talking to Terry, they discover his intricate system of bombs. They quickly realize the bombs are powerful enough to destroy everything within a 50-yard radius.
I looked in the back seat of the vehicle and saw probably 25 to 30 gallons of gasoline and the equal number of gunpowder in plastic containers.
There are also 2 pipe bombs, one on the passenger seat and one under Terry.
I noticed Terry sitting in the front seat, and at that time he was fooling with something in his hand that appeared to be a toggle switch.
A simple flip of this switch will ignite the bombs. For more than an hour, the 3 officers plead with Terry not to go through with his threat.
The longer it went on, the less comfortable we were with the situation. We knew we were losing Terry, that we were not communicating.
And he was becoming someone that I was not familiar with, and that scared me.
Sergeant Hollis motions the other 2 officers to the rear of the car.
We had a little conversation in the back of the car there, and I says, you know, Terry is not Terry. I think he might actually do this.
The officers decide to back off, but Terry has different plans.
As we turned to walk away, he called us back to the vehicle.
He said, "Hey, Bob, come here." And I thought at this point that he was going to give it up.
Terry does the unthinkable and detonates the pipe bomb on the front seat.
All I saw was just this huge explosion. And I just knew that, you know, I had lost 2 fellow officers.
Sergeant Hollis runs through the flames to help Lieutenant Lee. Miraculously, Sheriff Butorovich remains standing.
The next thing that I knew, I was pacing back and forth. I couldn't see out of one eye.
Then, to everyone's shock and horror, Terry emerges from the burning car.
There he is! Get him! Get him! Get him, Matt!
When I saw Terry get out of the vehicle, he was totally engulfed in flame. His clothing was completely on fire. And I heard him saying, "Oh no, oh no, oh no."
Heroically, Sheriff Butorovich rushes to save the man who just tried to kill him. Badly burned, Terry lies on the ground as flames reach the gasoline bomb in the rear of the car. Emergency personnel tend to the victims, while firefighters race to extinguish the flames. But the fire ignites the remaining pipe bomb under the driver's seat. Freed from the risk of additional bombs, firefighters gain the upper hand. Amazingly, both Lieutenant Lee and Sergeant Butorovich receive only minor injuries from the blast. Terry Rossland also survives, with burns over 70% of his body. But before he stands trial, Rossland takes his own life. The officers who survived Terry Rossland's car bombs credit simple luck for remaining alive.
Do I feel that I'm lucky to be alive today? You bet I do. I'm very fortunate. There are times that I wake up at night thinking about this and sweating, thinking, you know, how fortunate I was.
Police officers face the threat of violence every day. They must be ready to react at a moment's notice. Calhoun, Georgia. In the early morning hours, Trooper Mike Ralston becomes suspicious of a man asleep behind the wheel of a pickup truck in a parking lot.
Morning, sir. I see your license and vehicle registration, if you don't mind.
It was a very good location to get into situations that you normally wouldn't get into.
I checked the registration on this one, it didn't come back on file.
Ralston's station supports his concerns. The name of the registered owner of the vehicle is not the name of the suspect.
That's the type of officer that I am, is look beyond the ticket and to determine whether or not there's some other type of criminal activity involved.
Who's the vehicle belong to? Mike. Do you work for him or how? Can I take it just a minute from the status on that?
What Trooper Ralston doesn't know is that the suspect and the owner of the truck are actually the same person, a convicted felon who has changed his name. Even worse, this felon has a history of assaulting police.
I really didn't feel comfortable sitting in the patrol unit while this individual was walking around behind the truck. So I went back up to the truck.
Are you carrying anything in the back of the truck? My clothes, a couple pairs of clothes.
He was very cooperative and assisted in showing me what was in the back of the truck.
Can you see what's in the toolbox, if you don't mind? Bag.
While the suspect rummages through the contents of the truck, one item in particular catches the state trooper's eye.
There was one particular box that he constantly moved around to attempt to hide.
About the box with the brown tape. Smart parts that I carry in here. Extra filter and one.
I shook the box, made a determination. It really didn't feel like it was the items that he had advised that was in the box.
Can I see it?
But the man who was so cooperative moments ago now changes his mind and stalls.
He did several things, fastened the back cover down on the back of the bed of the truck, went to the front of the truck, removed some items in the front cab of the truck, taking approximately 1.5 to 2 minutes to button up a shirt.
The suspect can delay no longer. He pulls a knife from his pocket as if to open the box. Then he attacks. Just out of the camera's range, the struggle continues.
Okay, throw the knife down.
He was still making the attack, at which time I fired one shot.
I'm down. Okay, throw
the suspect is shot in the lower abdomen.
Just stay right where you at. Just afraid of you. Get out here. Give me an ambulance, 1018. Man down, shot fired.
My main concern was to keep him away from the truck and just have him to lie down until medical assistance could arrive.
Right where you at? Sir, just lay down. Lay down! Lay down, sir!
The only thing, I guess, that amazes me is the tenacity that this individual had.
Stay right where you at.
But the man seems unfazed by his wound, and he rips away Officer Ralston's radio mic and continues to advance.
Here comes them.
But Officer Ralston maintains his composure and holds the suspect at bay with a flashlight.
I'll shoot you again. I will.
My primary goal was to stop his attack on my person, but I didn't feel, after firing the first shot, I needed to fire a second shot.
Stay right there.
Officer Ralston continues to struggle with the suspect. He fears the man will grab the gun in his holster.
Just stay right there, sir.
After the individual was able to roll over on his back, gaining possible access to my weapon, I decided to let him back up.
By this time, the struggle has caught the attention of an innocent bystander.
Come on, buddy, help me.
The civilian grabs the suspect from behind in a bear hug, causing the suspect to suddenly give up his fight. Nearly 10 minutes after the attack began, the former felon is handcuffed and taken into custody. Trooper Ralston's hunch about the box proves correct. Inside, investigators find $25,000 worth of cocaine.
A lot of law enforcement arrests of this nature are being at the right time at the right place or being in the wrong place at the wrong time.
The restraint of Trooper Ralston shows the right embodiment of coolness and calm in a dangerous situation. Apprehending a dangerous suspect without resorting to lethal force can be a challenge for police officers. Seattle, Washington. An explosive standoff begins when a man brandishes a samurai sword on a downtown sidewalk. A friend of the man confirms authorities' worst fears.
Yeah, he knows how to use the sword. Everybody on the...
Police quickly cordon off the block.
Everybody on the curb. Over there.
A SWAT team arrives and surrounds the man. They begin talking to the suspect, trying to persuade him to drop his weapon.
Everything's about talking to people when we go to the scene. That's the first thing we want to do. Because anytime we arrive at the scene, we want a peaceful resolution.
But the suspect is unresponsive.
Never once did this individual talk to us. On occasion, he would shout out some things about Apollo and Satan and things like that, but we never were able to establish any sort of a conversation with him at all.
Officers are now 3 hours into the standoff. Eager to avoid bloodshed, they load their guns with special bean bags that strike with the same impact as a heavyweight boxer's punch. They're designed to halt, but not harm suspects.
The beanbag projectile is a target-specific, less lethal type of ammunition. It's a 2-inch square canvas bag filled with lead shot.
Suddenly, the man advances toward the crowd. Unable to convince him to stop, police fire the beanbags. The suspect retreats, but he endures round after round and shows no sign of surrender.
Have you ever seen anyone this resilient?
I haven't. In 3 decades of police work, I haven't.
As night falls, the man still refuses to relinquish his razor-sharp sword. 8 hours have passed, and police must try to disarm him another way. The man lays down to protect his face.
Chemical agents, or tear gas, makes the suspect very uncomfortable. Burns his eyes, it burns his skin, and it makes it difficult for him to breathe. And in some cases, makes him lose the will to fight.
But the man shakes off the tear gas with almost superhuman strength, never releasing his weapon. The SWAT team has one final option: use fire hoses to remove his sword. The jets of water pack the force of a hurricane wind. Then, in a highly orchestrated maneuver, police pin the suspect down with a ladder, pole, and riot shield. 11 hours after the standoff began, the SWAT team finally disarms the suspect.
Those guys went down by the book exactly what they were supposed to do. They finally immobilized the sword and then got on top of him with a shield and took him into custody. It was like textbook.
The man is taken to a waiting ambulance. Remarkably, no one is injured, including the suspect. On the streets of Seattle, police were able to prevent a tragedy and save a life by following one strict code. Even in the face of danger, use the minimum force necessary. To use the minimum force necessary, officers must rely on a number of non-lethal weapons. But what do they do when non-lethal weapons don't work? Columbus, Ohio. A man armed with a pistol sits in a plastic lawn chair in the middle of an intersection. Suicidal over a breakup with his girlfriend, he makes 2 demands.
He wanted to have a lawyer there to make his will out for him. He wanted to have his girlfriend present so she could watch him being killed or kill himself.
Officers will not honor these requests, but their options for bringing him in unharmed are limited.
Surprising him was out of the question. There were such, huge areas that he was in the middle of that we couldn't get to him.
Police negotiate with the suspect for 2 hours. They even give him a soda to try and gain his trust. But he continues to be irrational. Officers are left with only one hope for a peaceful resolution: disarming the suspect by shooting the pistol out of his hand.
It was an extreme situation at that point, so it demanded an extreme solution.
3 SWAT members, including sniper Mike Plum, target the small pistol from a hill 80 yards away.
I knew that if where I struck the weapon, that it would turn the weapon out from his hand. It wouldn't do any damage to his hand, and he wouldn't be injured.
Finally, the order is given. The first man with a clear shot is to fire.
501 Patrol, I've authorized officers to fire to shoot the weapon if possible. Command 4, stand by. We're beginning apprehension.
He just kind of looked at his hand, and then he just kind of slumped back down like, well, no gun, what am I going to do now? You know, game's over. And it was.
Unsure if the man has a second weapon, officers quickly place him in handcuffs.
I said, we didn't want to hurt you. We wanted to get you out of here alive. And he turned up and looked up at me, and he said, that was a great shot. And I said, yeah, it sure was.
In an instant, the standoff is over, the gun cleanly broken into 3 pieces. But to make this incredible shot, Officer Plum relied on years of training and a special technique known as patterning.
I just watched his habits of how he stood up and how he sat down and how he rested and the position of the gun that he held in a resting position.
Once the man's patterns were memorized, the sniper was able to predict the exact position of the gun, allowing him to hit his target without jeopardizing the suspect.
After the bullet hit the gun, it went between his legs and took a bite out of the leg of the chair and went into a mound of dirt that was across the street, and obviously no one was hurt.
Today, the remains of the gun proudly hang in the Columbus, Ohio police station, a testament to Officer Plum's incredible shot. But to the sniper, it was the best ending to a bad situation.
We resolved the situation successfully. He wasn't injured, and he's alive today. And who knows what contributions he may make.
Buddhist monks are known for their peaceful way of life. But in Seoul, Korea, a rival faction of monks vying for political power have barricaded themselves inside a monastery and threaten anyone who approaches. Armed with water cannons and riot gear, police surround the building. Inside, the monks drum and chant over a PA system. Ironically, they also use the PA to apologize to their neighbors for the noise. A tractor begins clearing the timbers that monks threw down to block the main entrance. The monks respond by throwing rocks and bottles. One monk even threatens to kill himself with a knife. But friends manage to stop him in time. The rest of the holy men arm themselves with Molotov cocktails and fire extinguishers. Despite their vows of non-violence, it's clear these holy men are prepared to fight. At last, police attempt to enter through the front of the monastery. Their efforts are unsuccessful. So a backhoe is brought in to smash a new entrance into the building. With access complete, riot police charge the breach. The monks retaliate with any weapon at their disposal. Police need another entrance into the building, so they deploy a piece of equipment called a mechanical ladder. But in their haste, they make the ascent before the ladder is properly secured. Although officers are injured, no one is killed in the fall. As police gain control of the building, monks resort to a last desperate defense: fire. Firefighters called to the scene quickly douse the flames before they can rage out of control. Just 30 minutes after the operation began, police have secured the building and take the monks into custody. The decisive action of police prevents a mass tragedy. No one is above the law. Cedar Hill, Texas. Officer Aaron Barnes heads south on Highway 67. The officer spots an abandoned car on the side of the road. Suspecting that the missing driver is robbing a nearby car lot, he proceeds to the scene. Finding no evidence of a break-in, Barnes returns to the abandoned car. Only this time, it's not empty. As Barnes approaches, his instinct warns him that something is wrong.
How you doing, sir?
Barnes doesn't know that the suspect has hidden a loaded gun under the seat of his car.
What are you doing over there? Oh, why don't you put your hands on top of the hood for me? Okay, put your hands on top of the car for me. What you doing? I want to pat you down, make sure you ain't got any weapons or anything. Who else is with you? By myself.
Barnes frisks the suspect, and the man grows increasingly uneasy.
Let me see your ID. Open your coat up. Where's it in? Okay.
The suspect knows he will go to jail if Officer Barnes finds the gun, and he'll do anything to prevent that.
You listen? Where you come? Why don't you put your hands right there, okay? Put your hands up here. Put your hands up here. Put your hands up here. Get out.
The suspect grabs his gun and fires. As Officer Barnes returns fire, the suspect escapes into the darkness.
Help me, I think he shot me. He's in the field, running towards the car company.
As Barnes and the suspect struggle, the gun fires just a fraction of an inch from the officer's head. Although Barnes thinks he's been shot, the bullet does not strike him, and he escapes uninjured. Luckily, the suspect is caught within hours. Officers then make a startling discovery. Only minutes before Barnes arrived on the scene, the suspect had murdered a truck driver. Officer Barnes is lucky to be alive. Today, the suspect is serving life in prison. Officer Barnes patrols the same streets, but the ordeal has given him a new outlook.
It's changed my life. It's made me more value the time I spend with my kids and my family. You know, because as I go back and watch the tape now, as I just watch the clock, as it's ticking away as I approach the vehicle, you know, I could see, man, I could have been filming my own death.
The events of that night have also given him a chance to help his fellow officers.
As far as other officers, they watch it, you know, and we critique it, you know, in a manner not to criticize, but to learn.
Officer Barnes's ordeal will educate fellow officers and possibly save their lives. Bangkok, Thailand. A man climbs onto a blistering hot roof with a hostage. His 3-year-old nephew. The suspect, allegedly high on methamphetamines, is oblivious to the fact that the fiberglass roof is old and weak, and that he and the boy could crash through at any moment. Police on scene attempt to calm the uncle, but he threatens to drop the child if anyone attempts a rescue. A plainclothes officer negotiates from a ladder. Then, another officer appears through a hole already torn in the roof. The uncle stumbles away, the fiberglass breaking beneath his feet. On the street below, officers watch as the suspect suddenly trips again and drops the child. Fortunately, the boy is not hurt. Finally, a negotiator persuades the reckless uncle to sit. The standoff continues this way for an hour, with the temperature on the roof exceeding 100 degrees. Police fear that the boy has become dehydrated, but the suspect still refuses to let the child go. Fearing for the boy's life, police have no choice but to act. When the man looks away, they charge. As an officer grabs the boy, he falls through the brittle roof, but he quickly regains his balance and carries the boy to safety. 2 hours after the standoff began, police take the suspect into custody. Although frightened and crying, the child is uninjured. The uncle, however, reportedly paid the price for his reckless behavior. Sumter County, South Carolina. Corporal Pat Wiley embarks on a high-speed chase.
You don't see the danger that's ahead or anything that you're leaving behind you until you look at this tape. And then you see all the danger that was involved in it.
Before today, the driver of this sedan didn't even have a speeding ticket.
We were in and out of traffic, pushing both vehicles, south and northbound, to the side of the road without slowing down whatsoever.
But what begins as a report of a reckless driver suddenly becomes a 100-mile-an-hour game of cat and mouse.
On your mind is to stop this vehicle before he poses any other danger to any other person on the roadway or property. And that was my intent, to stop that vehicle.
You're almost 1050, 3 vehicles.
It's clear this crazed driver has no intention of stopping, but in a stroke of luck for officers, he makes a costly move.
We were doing approximately 120 miles an hour when he took his hands off the wheel.
Appears to be a white male. He's putting his hands up in the air like he don't know what's going on.
At that time, I knew that this man was not in the right frame of mind. He definitely was not in the right frame of mind.
This reckless act causes the suspect's car to spin out of control.
Base, he's 1050, he's 1050. Megan, base back on the road.
I don't know if he was a professional driver or not, or if it was just pure luck.
Miraculously, the driver recovers and races toward the small town of Manning, but his luck is about to run out.
124 copy, this is advised, we're heading into Manning.
He was headed straight down Main Street, which goes through our center of town, courthouse and all the stores, residential areas.
Careening through the quiet downtown streets, he finds himself trapped. Desperate, he tries to cut through a gas station.
Pressing to the next line in the gas tank.
The main gas line below could explode at any moment, but the driver makes no attempt to surrender.
He's still inside.
All the doors were locked. He was clenching the steering wheel and looking straight out the windshield, not even noticing us at all.
In the background, just 50 yards from the flaming gas pumps, innocent children are rushed from a daycare center.
When I looked over and saw children running from the daycare, that's when I made a decision to pull back and set up a perimeter to make sure the safety of the public was the main issue.
The Then, in an amazing act of courage, a sheriff's deputy braves explosions and pushes the driver off the pumps to safety.
Hey, man, still in the vehicle. Gas tank's on fire.
I noticed that he was getting ready to take off again, and I took off around the other side of the gas station, and seeing that he was stopped, the deputy had him at gunpoint.
Despite orders from the officers to exit the vehicle, the driver refuses and instead turns up the volume on his car stereo.
When I entered the vehicle through the window that we broke out, his driver's window was half down, and you could hear classical music coming from the vehicle.
As the music blares and emergency units fight the inferno, police are faced with yet another challenge.
He would not loosen his grip from the steering wheel. His knuckles were white. That's how much of a grip he had on the steering wheel.
The metal on the car is so hot, it singes the officers' hands. But they're finally able to break the driver free.
As we extracted him from the vehicle, we were ducking because the gas pumps were exploding. We drug him to safety in front of the vehicle and placed him under arrest. He refused to be seen by a doctor. He stated several times that God made him do this and that he would save my life along with the other officer's life if we just take off the handcuffs, which of course I refused.
Despite the driver's violent actions, no one was killed or injured during the pursuit. High-speed chases may seem exciting on a 100-mile-per-hour chase.
We received information from the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department that he was supposed to be armed, that he was an ex-felon, that he was not going to go back to prison.
He's blown every red light and nearly caused CCs in every one of them.
He apparently told his mother that the party is armed and will shoot the police.
The desperate driver threatens everything in his path as he tries to escape police.
Found suit through San Pedro, almost hit 2 pedestrians. Copy eastbound Imperial approaching Main Street, basically blowing every intersection, every red light.
The officers in pursuit must remain calm and focused.
Emotionally, during the incident itself, you really don't realize what you're going through, I don't think. You're just kind of reacting to the situation.
California. An ex-convict has stolen a truck and now leads officers on a high-speed pursuit through the city's busiest streets and freeways.
Units are being advised again, delinquents out the way.
Sergeant Bart Arachiga is one of the officers involved in the belt and can't break free. For several tense seconds, Cole hangs from his open door.
I figure if I get thrown into that oncoming traffic, I'm dead.
The driver just failed. We're still northbound.
Luckily, Cole is thrown to the pavement with only minor injuries.
It just happened like a split second. It's over.
In his second stolen car, the suspect launches another chase.
Yeah, he's now on the 91 freeway. It's going to back up real bad. He's got no real place to go.
Despite heavy traffic, the driver becomes increasingly reckless. As the chase enters its second hour, the suspect refuses to surrender.
We got one car that tried to block him. They used the shoulder and continued on 91.
Finally, a desperate decision ends the chase. As the chase continues, the driver approaches his own home.
Now, CNC, this is where this pursuit
The suspect's sister has been watching the pursuit on television. As her brother passes, she races to the truck and tries to convince him to surrender.
Somebody's trying to jump on the vehicle. Some female came out and tried to jump on top of the vehicle, and she fell off the vehicle and now into the middle of the street.
But the driver accelerates and speeds back to the freeway.
Got brake lights on and a whole lot of sparks coming out.
As the streets begin to fill with rush hour traffic, the ongoing chase takes its toll on the stolen truck.
There was rubber pieces, tire pieces that were coming off.
He just lost the right front tire. He is on the rim.
Despite the damage, the suspect and officers continue to reach speeds of nearly 90 miles per hour.
57-200, we're exiting the Overton Boulevard north.
And the sparks began to fly from underneath his vehicle.
Now, you might be able to squeeze through on the shoulder, but I doubt it.
Later on, after the tire came completely off, there were pieces of the wheel.
Traffic is off northbound to Overton.
With no escape, the suspect crashes his battered truck into another automobile.
He's just seen with a blue van. He stopped on the off-ramp. Driver's getting out. And he's jumping in another car.
Inside sits Tim Cole.
Before I knew it, he was in my van on top of me, stepping on the gas, and I was putting my foot on the brake. He's saying, get out, get out.
The terrified driver tries to escape.
It looks like the driver might jump out into the center median.
But Cole becomes tangled in his